Right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. The idea with these webinars is to add value to people moving across to Asia, or even within Asia wanting to move and switch around between different countries. I deal with a lot of expats abroad and often get asked questions about living expenses, costs, all sorts of other things, ability to save. So this way, this kind of webinar is more about just helping everyone with some real life, genuine advice and opinions from people actually living and working abroad. If I can introduce everyone quickly. Scott. Scott is out in South Korea and he's been there for quite some time. Scott, how long have you been in Korea?
This is my 10th year
10
and probably
years.
staying for a long time.
Wow. And Scott was just before we started the webinar and we were talking to each other. Lisa was telling us how long she's been in China, 5 years. And Scott was commenting on how long that is until we asked him, well, how long have you been in Korea? 10 years, way out beats 5 years. Hi, Lisa. Lisa, you're in China. Where about in China are you?
I'm based in Jiangsu province in Nantong City.
And if you can hear that, for those of you who are listening, Lisa actually has a little one. She's one of those very brave South Africans living abroad with a little toddler.
Yes, he's busy like joining the meeting and also eating.
Full disclosure, my little one is also at home sick today. So, at the moment she's watching television, but you never know with the little ones. She might pop round and say hi. Then Matthew, two Matthews on the call. Matthew seems to be a very popular name for good reason. It's a nice name. Matthew is out in Taiwan. Matthew, how long have you been in Taiwan?
Now I'm going to trump even Scott over here, but I've been here for 13 years, 13 fantastic years. Yeah, so quite a long time.
And then within the red shirt, we have Charmaine, and Charmaine is joining us from Vietnam. Thank you everyone for joining. Charmaine, how long have you been in Vietnam, or how long have you been living abroad at least?
Well, I've been in Vietnam now for 6 years.
For 6 years, and before that, where were you?
Oh, no, South Africa. I came straight from South Africa to Vietnam. Haven't left.
Okay, brilliant. So we have a nice mix of people from all the various countries or the key sort of destinations out there when it comes to teaching English. So hopefully we can add value. Now, let's start off very simply with the whole job thing. There's a very big notion out there that compared to 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago, finding a job now is just so difficult. There are just no jobs available. How are you guys finding it? Is it true? What are the job markets like in your different areas? Shall we start with you, Scott? What do you think?
Well, and you'd probably also have felt this. Yeah, Korea definitely, having been here and in the various sectors of the job market for teaching at least, it's definitely I don't want to say on a decline, but it is tougher because people hang on to the good jobs.
Yeah.
And I'll give a little quick overview of what the job sectors are in Korea. You've got international schools, then you've got university jobs, you've got public schools and government programs, and then the private academies. Okay, and then a few other different ones around that. Okay, but as things like the government program changes its approach or gets rid of some, then the private academy field gets flooded, and those salaries go down because then it's a buyer's market, I guess, and you that's kind of what you see happening. So people are saying that while there are jobs, the salaries kind of uh, plateaued,
Yeah.
and the international school jobs are very competitive and hard to get. So people hang on to them, and university jobs also. So I'm not. It's a realistic, not a bleak picture, but yeah, Korea. Uh, the jobs are
Yeah,
competitive
I
and
think the
hard to
job
find.
market's tougher than it was a few years back. There's still
Yes.
lots of jobs available, but there is
Oh,
tougher.
yes.
There's still a lot more people going out that way.
That's the other thing as well. Yeah.
In Taiwan, do you find it similar?
Look, I would imagine, look, like for instance, sorry, Charmaine, I don't know if you have a family or not, but I know myself and Lisa and Scott, we have our children and our wives here. So obviously we're looking for something different. If you're planning on coming to Taiwan and you wanted to get a teaching job and you weren't serious about probably staying here long term, there's plenty of opportunities here. I'll be very honest with you. I know before Scott was talking about, and I'm not talking about university positions or international school positions. If you wanted to get into those, as Scott said, that is a very cutthroat market. It's very difficult to get into because most people want to do that. One of the benefits for that, for instance, if you have children, they can then attend these schools for vastly reduced rates and things like that. The current school that I'm now, when I came to Taiwan, I started at the bottom. I didn't think I was going to be here for 13 years and start a family, but I did start at the bottom. And for me, as a single male coming over, that was more than enough. But when I got my first paycheck, I couldn't believe how much money I was getting. So if you are coming here and obviously you've organized things, you've done your research and things like that. In Taiwan, you get many schools, and we call them bushibans. And they are these private, smaller schools that you would still get a decent salary for. Obviously, you know, all schools are different. But especially because during COVID in Taiwan, because not many people were coming in, you know, the amount of teachers coming in was very, very little. So now that the borders have opened up again, many more schools are actually wanting foreigners to come over and hiring. Actually, a lot of the schools, even your smaller schools, are expanding. But I would say Taiwan for now definitely probably a bit easier than Korea if you wanted to get your foothold in here. Look, I know also with Korea, I think they're also more strict with regards to you know, your degrees and what you've studied.
Yeah.
I believe in Taiwan, you could have like for me, for instance, I came over with a 3-year diploma from CPUT. And unfortunately, in Korea and countries like Korea and Japan, that is not recognized as a degree because it's not 4 years.
Yeah.
However, in Taiwan, it's recognized as a degree, a 3-year degree. So possibly if you are interested in coming to Asia, Taiwan might be a good first step. You know, I mean, I don't want to go too far off your question, but, you know, then you can study from Taiwan and things as well. If you do want to get your teacher's license or anything like that, and then that will open up many doors around Asia. Just one thing though, and I'm not sure if it's the same in China and Korea or South Korea and Vietnam, but if you're here, just please remember, unfortunately, UNISA is not recognized in Taiwan. And I know many teachers that join the groups, they are UNISA. Just as a piece of advice, try, I mean, I'm sure you'd have to do your research, but if you can, stay away from online courses and try actually go to actual classes and things like that. But sorry, to answer your original question, Taiwan's still quite open and quite easy to get a job.
Okay. Lisa, go to you to China. What are you finding the job market's like in China? Is it true that it is extremely difficult to find a job there now?
To be honest, I moved here 2019, right? And I was based in the training centers. And back then, training centers were booming in China, and they were like hiring like South Africans and people from native countries, right? And everyone that came, most of them were based in training centers and stuff like that. And when that happened, when the government changed its laws and stuff like that, then most of the people moved to the kindergartens and some to primary schools, but most people went more to kindergartens, which were like more open, right? And then like it was still easier. And then COVID happened, right? Where many people went out of the country. And then like what happened was schools were without teachers that were enough for the country. So salaries started going high. because everyone wanted a teacher because like there were not enough teachers. So like people could switch jobs. Like today you feel like, oh my God, my boss is annoying. So I want to change schools and go to that one. That one is offering me this much. So I'm going to go with that school and stuff like that. So you could pick and choose. And like if they were like on the side of like, oh, begging, we were like, I want that, I want this, I want that, I want this, right? So it was easier for us that we're inside. Then what happened was when the borders happened to open, tables changed. Last year, so borders opened now, like because what happened was salaries went high and the went extremely high to an extent that like we were shocked when you changed the jobs. Huh? I'm moving from here to there, just like that, like and then now the owners of the schools and the schools began to maybe I think that how can we reduce or how can we like go back to where we were. So when borders opened and the teachers started coming, then there's like many teachers now in the country, so there's no need to like say that they are begging you or they are trying to retain you, because they want to take back the market to how it was before with the entry level from whatever salary of back then. So the people that are coming now or that were coming from last year, we're accepting the salaries that they are trying to take us back to or take the newcomers back to. So many of them were accepting those salaries, whereas some of us that are stuck in our jobs that we are in, like we remained in those positions, earning the salaries that were from the COVID, right? And then others that are coming in are like accepting those salaries. Then it became like that the schools are like enough of like teachers. They're not sort of like wanting somebody that is going to want more money. So what is happening currently, what I'm getting and what I'm hearing is that most of the time a school will say they don't those maybe the previous ones that have been in the jobs, they'll be told that, oh, if we are to renew your contract, we are going to cut your salary. It goes back, maybe, I don't know, they cut with whatever salary that they cut, which of course people are unhappy, but the people that were coming from last year are the
Happy with
ones.
those two salaries, yeah.
Yes. So like now the schools don't really need more teachers, and they can now choose that if we can hire someone maybe from whichever country, they can accept 10,000. And then what about the person that has been there maybe 15 years and then it's the same now? It doesn't matter whether you were here 10 years ago, 13 years ago. If you need to switch also within the country, it is difficult to find a job because now the salary doesn't look at you were here 5 years, you were stuck with us through COVID, you were whatever. So it's sketchy and it's difficult, and people are saying like it's difficult to switch. Some those that want to come in, like they're not getting. There are other issues also that maybe I might mention later that are like facing South Africans in particular, especially
Interesting.
the color. Yeah.
Charmaine, in Vietnam, what would you say the job market is like over there? Is it easy to get a job on that side, or has it become more difficult over the last few years?
I think for South Africans, it's becoming a bit difficult because they no longer classify us as native speakers. We have to now add on, if you've got, they don't do diplomas here. It's you have to have a degree. If you don't have a degree in literature or as a teacher, you'll have to do a C1 certificate to prove your proficiency in the English language. And from there, even with your TEFL. So there is jobs. There are a lot of jobs opening. The only problem that happens with that is there are a lot of small startup companies, and they tend to offer newcomers fantastic salaries. They're going to do this and that for 100 hours a month. So what we have, very similar to everywhere else as well, you have your university, which is at the top, you have your international schools, and you have your private schools, you have your public schools, and then you have your centers. And majority of the places where people come over, especially if they're fresh off the bat, they come in their working centers and they don't do their research. So what happens is they go for these amazing jobs and they work for a month, and we get paid we don't get paid on the last day of the month. We get paid anything between 10 and 15 days. Some schools even up to 21 days. So they hold you into that lock for the 2 weeks, and you think that you're going to get your salary, and it doesn't happen. And what happens is a lot of the times these new teachers come in here and they stay here, hoping that they'll get their salary, and they ask nicely and they ask nicely. And by the time they've done that, they've worked for another month and they haven't got a salary. I know quite a few people who have, what do you call it?
Midnight run.
Civil cases against the top.
Yeah.
One of them is quite big. There's a few now that are quite big brand names from the north to the south of Vietnam who owe their teachers a lot of money, and they're just walking away. They've just basically closed the company down, come up with a new name, and they're operating again, and people are not doing their research. So in saying that, they've got to be very careful when coming here. They have to join the Facebook groups and see what is actually happening before they even attempt to come over. And unless even if they've been offered a work permit and the TRC and everything that goes with it, they still have to do their research. And a lot of the teachers, because I deal a lot with the embassy and a lot behind the scenes with teachers, and a lot of them have not done their homework when coming to Vietnam. And Vietnam is one of the cheaper places to live in Asia. And so they come here with that opportunity, and they're going to make lots of money, and their salaries are good. The salaries are very good. You can live in where most of the teachers live, which is in Taeho, up in Hanoi. I'm just outside, so for what they pay for accommodation and what I pay is like a third. But I've been with my company now for 4 years, but I've helped a lot of other people. Just recently, last year, I bought a kid came over with an offer, and he got there, and I think it was like 2 days, and his father phoned me and said, please, can you help me? I don't even know the family from a bar of soap. And the father phoned, and he's like, my son is in the middle of nowhere, and he's crying, and he doesn't know what to do. And this is a kid of, 24. He's just come out of university, wanting to come here for a year and experience. And I ended up having to go and fetch him, bring him here, and I managed to get him into my company. So he worked with my company for a year, and the plan was for him to go back, but he's decided not to. He's going home, and he's going to come back and work at one of our international schools here. But there are things, there's not a happy ending, and a lot of people don't understand that. I've just helped another South African to go back. He didn't renew his work permit, or he didn't find work and transfer his work permit over. And so he was here without a visa for 4 years. 4 years. And with that, obviously he had a high fine. Immigration were looking for him. He couldn't find work, so he was begging. Eventually got detained, and by the time he got detained, I was called in to come and help. And then obviously being South African, he was South African, negotiate between the embassy, the immigration office, the company, the family, and him to get him back home. So we do have very bad situations here. And it's basically boils down to the people do not do enough homework on Vietnam. But in saying that, there are jobs. You just got to look for them. You've got to be very careful about looking for which job you're going for.
Yeah, I think
So,
that
that's
goes for almost all the Asian countries. You do have to do your homework. There's a sort of an idea that you just reach out, you do an interview, you find a school, and then you go. My very first job actually in China was a very, very scary, talking about that he's 24. I wasn't quite that young. I was 27, but still extremely scary. And in those days there weren't many foreigners in China. But you go there and it's not at all what you're used to. I remember complaining, I won't say I was in tears, but I remember complaining that my entire apartment was smaller than my bathroom back home. Yes, and I saw a recent post about that too. Another teacher, I think it was in South Korea, complaining because her apartment is smaller than her bathroom. There isn't even enough space for a single bed. So you do need to do your homework, and there are certain questions that you need to ask. You need to do a little bit of research about the school, the company, or wherever you're going, the town that you're going to be living in. One of the things I learned, which is very, very beneficial when accepting a job, and things, to get photographs of what the accommodation will look like. But this thing, there are jobs out there. From what I gather from everyone, there are jobs out there. It's perhaps not as easy to find, but A, do your homework. B, know what your qualifications are and where you're applying. And also be sort of reasonable in terms of what you're expecting. This is the thing in all of your Asian countries. I think there's very much a mismatch from 5 years ago, even longer before that, thinking that you're going to earn this huge salary, make millions, and come home in a year or two's time. It's not quite like that. Salaries are good compared to South Africa, but you need to be realistic. In terms of living expenses, so costs, this is something where the average person, no matter what country you're sitting in, things have become more expensive. Let's start this time with Lisa. In terms of China, how have you found, because you've been there through COVID and afterwards, the cost of living? So the salaries have come down to before COVID sort of levels again, and that's what they're.
Not mine. I'm joking.
Cost of living, how have you found expenses there? I mean, is it very expensive, or are you able to still save? How are you finding just general day-to-day living expenses, accommodation, food, transport, those sorts of things? Is it exorbitant, or can you actually cope?
Okay, with my school where I work, my school pays for my apartment, so I don't have to pay for that. So that was aside; they pay for that, and it's not. I like what you said by saying that they must send you pictures, but sending pictures is not enough, because you need to go and see, because what you see on the pictures sometimes doesn't match when you get there. So I want to see how it looks like and stuff like that. Because at first, when I moved here where I am now, they said, "Oh, you're gonna live in a hotel." There's another teacher that used to live there, and then the hotel. I was like, "This is a hotel." Downstairs it's a hotel, but my room didn't look like a hotel, and I had to live there for sort of like a year. And then it was sort of like a bachelor apartment. Then after that, I informed them that, oh, listen, because I was in a previous city, that I couldn't come where I am now to come and view, and the distance and stuff like that. So I then opted to stay there. And then when I eventually, after a year, when I had to renew my contract, I told them that I want another place, and they didn't have a problem with that. Then I went to view like a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, you choose whichever you want. And the good thing is that I'm in a small city. I don't like big cities because I don't like spending. I like saving money. And so where I am, things aren't that expensive, because I also, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Wow. So I also don't have what is it? I also there's no like tourist attraction places that are a lot. So I need to go to Shanghai, Beijing, and other places if I want that kind of, or those kind of things. And I know that in bigger cities like those, when you go in a restaurant, you could spend 1,000 maybe in rents just for a meal, like in a Western restaurant. But where I am, it's like I spend way less. Like for example, in a week, because I do my groceries weekly, like maybe 250 yuan, something like that, 200 to 300 yuan, like that I spend in a week. But that is even less without converting to South African rents. Like for here, I think it's less, and like it's affordable. And my helper cooks. I also cook, and at work, because in my school they cook lunch, and so because I said I save my money, I don't like spending a lot. Here and there I would buy, but like I prefer eating from like the cafeteria at work. I don't buy a lot during lunch, so I only eat at home and at work, meaning that I don't spend that much. And for activities and stuff like that, I would go to cities it's not an every weekend thing. It's when
Yeah.
I want to, then I would go, and that way I save a lot. It's not the things here are not like really expensive, like the transport, getting around. For instance, I walk to school because I chose an apartment that is closer to school because I want to save money. I don't want to be paying for this and that. Even paying, like, it's not that expensive though, like 10 yuan for where I stay to work, so it's like really affordable. It's not like expensive. And what else? You said accommodation.
So you're able to, the living, it's not as expensive as it would be back home. So in rands, for those of you, or in other currencies, it's about, Lisa's average food bill on a week is about $500 to $600, and transport is about $25 if she goes to, takes a taxi or something to work. But you're able to save. And for those of you who don't know, there are many of you out there, you can search for Lisa online. She's a bit of an online sensational guru when it comes to making money and making a success of herself in China and being able to save.
Can I please add?
Yes.
I moved to China 2019 with the goal of being a millionaire. And because I had that goal and I had to, I wasn't earning a lot, of course, when I came here, but with the salary that I had, I didn't have, Didi, the taxi, whatever, the one that you move around, like Uber, Taxify.
Yes.
I didn't have that because I could walk to work. And also I didn't have the food app, where you buy, order KFC, whatever the case is, because where I stayed, it was like a CBD area. Like I could walk, I can see KFC. Why must I order? Because then there's going to be like added fees. So I checked ways of how I can save money, and also I didn't have. There's an app called Taobao where you can buy clothes. That app, if you stay there, you would spend all your money. You think that, oh, it's 10 rand, it's 15, everything is cheap, but then like you end up like seeing that you spent a lot of money like after some time. But I decided not to have, sorry, just one moment.
No, that's fine. So let's pop down to Matt at the bottom there. So essentially, in terms of China, you can save. Living expenses are not that high. They are quite low. And again, this is an expat life thing. It's one of the, it's very easy to spend when you're living abroad. Life there is designed to come to your door, and you get.
I wasn't done.
Yes, and there's
I had to touch the baby. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I need to
No,
say
that's
this.
fine.
Yes, and I was on the part of like having the mindset from South Africa of that I wanted to be a millionaire. And then I was saving most of my salary. I didn't look at other people's, how they are living, how they are going out every now and then, what they are buying, what they are eating, how they are traveling and all that, because I had that goal of like, I wanted to be a millionaire. And then like within 5 years, just last year, and then I became a millionaire in cash, not in assets. Yeah, because I made sure to be very focused and all that, because it's easy also to, when you move abroad, then like you start traveling, you start comparing your life, you lose focus on like maybe why you moved, maybe others moved they are moving there for different reasons, and maybe they don't have that community of people that maybe are like-minded like them. So the other thing maybe would be surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you, people that are like goal focused like you, and not just coming, living your life, and then after maybe 5 years or after years, you have nothing that you have done for yourself. You just have pictures of Instagram of what the holidays you went to, which there's nothing wrong with that, but then what do you have to show for it? That you are somewhere there in Asia, and then when you have to go back home, what do you have? Yeah.
Okay, so Matt, down to you. Living costs in Taiwan. How expensive is it to be there, and are you able to save?
So look, I mean, the honest truth is, if you're coming from South Africa, when you step foot here and you look at a sandwich in 7-Eleven, you're probably going to gasp, because you're going to say, why does it cost so much? Look, when I came here 13 years ago, so obviously it was a very long time ago, But realistically, if you're listening, I mean, I'm not sure if it's the same with other countries, but coming to Taiwan, you, unless you do have a friend or family that you're going to stay with when you arrive and things like that, you are looking, in my honest opinion, you're probably going to have to come here with about 30 to 40,000 rand. The reason being is you have to, if you find a place yourself, no matter how big or small, you're going to have to pay first and last month's rent straight away. You're going to have to probably get yourself some kind of transportation. The public transport here is easy, cheap indeed. But get yourself a scooter or something like that. That's going to be a must for you. Again, as I mentioned, when you are here and you've been here a year or two and kind of got settled in things, then obviously, doing your grocery shopping and things like that is very affordable, But I mean, I'll give you an example. When my parents came over here the first time, like I said, my dad was shocked because he kept on converting everything to rands, it is a very affordable place. Look here, between myself and my wife's a nurse, we save plenty. We are also involved with Holborn and things like that. We are able to save for yearly holidays. We are able to save for our children's education and any needs they might have. We are also able to have certain fixed deposits that we put money into and things like that. So really, in Taiwan, I can only talk about Taiwan because it's the only Asian country I've lived in. But I mean, if you're willing to put your head down and work hard, you will make a life for yourself here. Absolutely. It's difficult because accommodation's been spoken about a lot. And yes, very old buildings, nothing like you might have grown up at home in your standard houses with your swimming pools and your front and back gardens. Nothing like that here. Well, I should say it's not a lot here. You're going to be living in huge, tall buildings. They build up in Taiwan, not out because of the space. But yeah, just adjust your expectations. I think Lisa also mentioned, don't go look at people's IGs. And I think Charmaine and Scott, I believe we spoke about this last time as well. Get into those groups. Trust me, people are very honest in those groups, sometimes a little bit too honest. Be very wary as well of people, because as much as there are schools that probably don't treat their workers correctly, there's also lots of poor employees that come over, and they believe that it's not their fault, but actually at the end of the day, they're not a great employee, and then they'll bash the school. So doing your own research properly, don't always trust what somebody says. But yeah, going back to the affordability of Taiwan, it is very affordable. As long as you realize that you're not going to come here and be able to go to fancy restaurants and things like that, at least for the first 2 years. How myself and my wife save is we cook a lot. You go to the local restaurants. You don't go to your KFCs or your McDonald's, or obviously those are fast food and that's still relatively cheap. But yeah, like I said, I mean, if you come here and you're willing to work hard, put your head down, you can still travel around Taiwan. As I mentioned, Taiwan's also small, So really going from north to south doesn't take a long time. And if you get a bus, it would cost you, from all the way to the top to the bottom, cost you 250 Rand, So it really is an affordable place. But the problem is then also, if you're going to come here and you're going to want to live the Instagram lifestyle, going out all the time and things, and that's where your money's going to get burnt. Because as much, an example is over here, you go to a bar, you buy a beer that is 375 milliliters. And I'm bringing up alcohol because as South Africans, I'm sure we all like to have a dork once in a while. But, you go to the bar and you're spending 80 or 90 Rand on a beer, So it's also do research on, what you are planning on doing when you come here and what your biggest expenses will be. Yeah. As far as accommodation is concerned, look, that certainly has gone up, but you can still get very decent places, and then you can share as well. I mean, I met a lot of people through living with people, and that's one way to cut the costs. What another advantage in Taiwan is they are taking the declining birth rate very seriously. So for instance, at my school, we've all now got an extra bonus for the amount of children we have underneath 6. So Taiwan, why I mention that is because I know there's probably many people watching and listening who possibly do have families and are considering moving their family over here.
Yeah.
And or into Asia. And I would say Taiwan is very welcoming with regards to people with young children, you know, because they realize that having young children is a big expense. And another thing is, really, if you do have children and you're coming here, you will get, first of all, the government school program is very, very cheap here. But also, any school you work at, you will get subsidized if your child wants to go there. So overall, like I said, and I think like Charmaine, everyone here has mentioned, is do your research, check properly, you know. Yes, listen to what people have to say, but possibly contact the school as well. And don't just look at 1 or 2 or 3, look at the majority of them. And also realize that when you first come here, you might have to work 1 or 2 less desirable jobs before you can get your foot. I think
that's the key thing. Yes, your first job usually isn't the best or a great job, and you sometimes need to stick it out a year to realize the difference.
And also, it's the difference in culture. And oftentimes, when schools are looking at CVs, they do want to see how long have you been in Taiwan for. If they see, you know, you're new, like, I mean, early on we were talking about the weather. I mean, the humidity in Taiwan, I've still haven't gotten used to it. There's lots of aspects to take on board, you know. But yeah, as far as being able to save and live comfortably in Taiwan, it's certainly doable, and I'm proof of that. Look, I mean,
in Vietnam, what's it like there? Can you save? What's the cost of living like?
If you come over as a single person, yes, you can. When I left, my daughter was 17, and I just said to her, "You're not staying in South Africa, you're coming with me," and that's it. So, and she stayed ever since. So she's still here. She's actually working now herself for my company, the company that I work for. But obviously, you know, having a young daughter, always wanting something. So most of my savings goes to her right now. And then also in COVID, I spent a lot of money in COVID to help other South Africans that decided to stay, that struggled, that going back to South Africa was not an option for them. But in saying that you can save, I don't save. Honestly, I don't save. I've just come back from a 10-day trip in Bali. It was a spur of the moment thing. Like, it was like my daughter was going, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to come with you. And obviously, I'll end up picking up most of the bill. But anyway, it's fine. I like to travel. I want to travel. I've been to what do you call it, Thailand several times. I love Thailand. I've traveled to Vietnam. So yeah, I'm the opposite. I chased money when I was in South Africa, and now with me being at the age that I am, I'm very secure in my position in my company. I've moved up the ranks from being just a teacher to managing all our foreign teachers, liaising with them, giving them introductions into the culture and what to expect in the school. I do all the training for them and everything like that. I do a bit of teaching, but not as much as what I used to. But a lot of people do, they can save. I had dinner this evening with my daughter, which is what I do. I don't cook at home, hardly cook. I'm always out, and I spent 90 Rand for dinner for the 2 of us. So, you know, Vietnam does have its perks. I don't like Western food as much as what I would have eaten if I was back at home. I eat a lot of Vietnamese foods here. I've got a lot of my normal local ones that I do enjoy. But if you do go to Western, if you want to stick with Western and you want to live in Hanoi, where all the Westerners actually do land up living, which is Ho Tay and Ho An Kiem, more expensive. You don't get to save. You work really, really hard. And I know that some people do 2 jobs. I only work Monday to Friday and public schools. And then you get the other ones that work in international schools. They work nonstop, like being a teacher back at home. And they often moan that they're burnt out before the year is even out. And they haven't done anything. They haven't even gone on a holiday. They haven't saved any money. So yeah, there's pros and cons to being in Vietnam. I prefer public schools. It's a lot more, for me, I feel that that's where my calling is. I don't want to be in international schools, but that's just for me. But yeah, I can save. I just choose not to save.
Okay. And you, Scott, tell us about Korea. Can you save Yeah, what are the salaries
Yes,
like?
because Korea actually usually standard with any job, regardless of which sector, accommodation will be attached to that. Uh, it might be small, as you've probably experienced, Matthew, but and definitely if you're in Seoul, it will be small. But if you're willing to go to the medium cities, medium tier cities, smaller cities where I started, then yeah, you definitely have a lot more disposable income. And like Charmaine was saying that she doesn't save, but she chooses not to, which is saying that she has that disposable income to be able to do these things, which is saying something. And I think to echo what everyone's saying about doing your research, that I cannot stress hard enough about just doing research about there are places that will exploit you, but then there are safe avenues. And it would be great if like someone did like a kind of website about China, Taiwan, Vietnam, and Korea, about pros and cons about all of them. But like Korea, what was I gonna say? Oh, about doing your research. But the other thing is know why you want to do this journey, right? When I
Yeah.
first did it 10 years ago, I wanted to travel. And I did. In the first 2 years, I was on the EPIC program, which is the government program where the salaries are slightly higher to start. Actually, it's quite sheltered. It's really good and safe, and they'll everything will be legit. You're not gonna get no one's gonna exploit you or take your money in illegitimate ways. And then you've got this disposable income because they pay for your housing and they give you certain other perks. And I was able to travel all over Asia to every country where South Africans don't need a visa. So which is
And there
one
are-
thing about South African passports you also got to do some homework about. And then as the years go by, your motivations for being in this country, as Matthew will have experienced, and Charmaine, and Lisa from right off the bat, uh, you're like, okay, well, now I want to settle. I've done Philippines twice. I've been to Malaysia, both islands. I've been to Sydney and Perth, and we're just you name it, around Asia, travel there. And but then you want to settle, and that's when I actually got in touch with Matthew, and it was then that I started saving, and that's proved very, very probably also one of the best things I did, because I had accumulated some money, but not knowing what to do with it. See, that's the other thing. Even if you do save in these countries, it is what are you going to do with your savings? Some of them are more restrictive than others, and that is where it is very beneficial, like getting information from people who have done this, going on this journey. Now, okay, you're accumulating some money. What is the best thing to do
you do
with
next,
that money? And a lot of the time, yeah, keeping it in that country or sending it back are not the best options.
yeah.
And I didn't know what to do with it.
Well,
So, yeah.
yeah, so I will be doing a webinar next week on that topic, the alternatives to sending money home. This
Okay.
webinar is purely about experiences in Asia, so I will do a webinar on that. So just I'm going to run a poll in the background for everyone that's taking part. Please, it helps us to know what to chat about in the next ones. So please do answer that as you go. There we.
Sorry, Matthew, can I add one thing as well quickly? But with
Yes,
regards to
please do.
salaries and things, another thing that people should check is how much you are taxed. Because all
Yes.
schools will advertise before tax. So when I came to Taiwan, oh, this is a great salary. Then I was taxed 18%. And for instance, in Taiwan, the fiscal year is from January to December. So you do get that money back. You only, or not all of it, you get a large percent back, but that's only the following year in August. So these are things you need. An example is we had a teacher who came there, and so in Taiwan you have to work for 6 months. If at the school I'm currently at, it's 6% that they charge for income. But now because he hadn't worked for 6 months and they fired him, he then had to pay the difference to the government because then it had to go back up to 18%. So he had to end up paying about 40,000 Rand out of his own pocket. And again, he will get that money back, but it will only be next year, August. So just another thing to check is just the tax laws. And remember as well, it's a lot, most of the time, it's not the schools that are saying these things, it's the government. So you can say whatever you want about the 18% tax, but it's just law, you know. But yeah, just wanted
Lisa,
to.
yeah?
Oh, I also wanted to add, but it's maybe different from what the text and the other one that said. I wanted to add that when you move abroad with the school, one has to also ask questions with the school in terms of like the medicals and the insurance that you are covered in, because it happens, we've had cases in China of where unfortunately somebody would pass away, then like maybe they didn't have like the insurance, or maybe the school doesn't cover that, and then now how to get the body back to South Africa. Now it's not an issue because people can help, but outside, the people that are outside of South Africa would be thinking that, but you work, you have a job, what have you been doing? Why can't the person pay for themselves? Where is the money and stuff like that? But it's very much expensive, I believe, to move somebody from here to there. And other schools don't cover that. They only cover maybe accident, cover. They don't cover when somebody passes on and have to take them back. So it's something that a person has to look into, like that. Secure yourself, have maybe a life cover, have this and that, and find out if it covers you when you are abroad, because situations like that unfortunately happen, and when they happen, like it's
They're unplanned.
Yes.
Okay, so very quickly, so you are able to say, just to give everyone an idea of what salaries are like out there, what is the average, or what would you say, Scott, is the average salary in Korea for a newcomer teacher or a general teacher in Korea?
Okay. A newcomer entering Korea should get at least 2.5 million Korean won, which is 30 to 35,000 Rand. And the other thing, yeah, like people say about taxes, South Africans do get the first 2 years working in Korea exempt from taxes if you do your homework and get your residence certificate from SARS. Then you don't pay taxes for the first 2 years of living here. So then that adds to the saving potential. But yeah, I would say that's anything below that would be a bit suspect. Obviously, employers are going to try and undercut, and always remember to try and negotiate a little, okay? Because it is that. But that's what I would say would be a fair starting salary.
So if we put this into, so we can compare all of them. So Korea, you're looking at about at 2.5 million, because Koreans work in Korean won, and they work with millions, not thousands or hundreds. So it's about $1,800. So just under $2,000. Matt, in Taiwan, what would you say is the average starting price for a teacher there?
I mean, look, obviously it all depends, but I would say on the low end, if you're going into these smaller bushiban kind of vibes, it would probably be very similar, also between $1,800 and $2,000 US, yeah, a month, yeah. Which, I mean, you can improve on, but
Yeah.
that would be the start, I would say. Again, just as Scott mentioned, unless you're doing part-time or something, but if you're doing a full-time job and getting less than that, don't even bother, yeah.
Charmaine, in Vietnam, what's the salaries like there what's the average sort of salary for a new teacher?
You're looking at about 1,200 US to 1,500 as an entry level for 100 hours.
So slightly lower, but the living costs are substantially cheaper.
It is very low, but it is cheaper. I have a 2-bedroom, fully furnished apartment on a golf estate, which is about 35 minutes outside of Hanoi, and I pay $350 for that. So
Wow,
Yeah,
that's incredible.
exactly. And our salaries, it's entry level. You can even find a what do you call it? A one-bedroom apartment. I just want to do the conversion. Let me just do the conversion. I think it's about 500. It's less. It's about $250 for a one-bedroom, fully furnished apartment. And we've got the top of the range security, cameras all over, securities all over. And yeah, we've got so many swimming pools here. You can choose whichever one you want to go to. I hop between them every morning. But we have great atmosphere. We've got a lot of greenery. There's Swan Lake. They've got a lot of activities for the kids and things like that. So even though we have a very low entry level in terms of salaries, you can find good accommodation for next to nothing. Even in the smaller cities, they will provide you with accommodation. My company doesn't, but then again, where we live, we don't really need the support compared to the salary that we're earning. They don't often offer insurance. You have to sort out your own insurance, but they do social insurance for you. It's an absolute must that they do social insurance, and that goes according to what your salary is. So it's about 20%. The company pays 10%, and you have to pay 10% of your social insurance. But other than that, there's no medical unless it's offered in the actual contract. So yeah, but it's cheap.
And Lisa, in China, what would you say now is the average starting salary for a teacher coming to China?
That one is a hard question because some people, I feel maybe what's acceptable, I think around 15,000, because that's what was the salary before COVID happened. And then that's what is reasonable. But now they are stretching it back. Some people are getting like, they're offered 10,000. It's like a take it or leave it type of situation. So, but I think what's reasonable, if we taking it back then as an entry level, can be from 15,000 to 18,000. 18,000 will be stretching it because now they like reducing some of them, not all. Yeah. So it's
so 15,000 RMB is also $2,000. So the salaries are more or less the same. Yeah, the average salary I found on the lower end to the higher end is between 15,000 RMB to around 20,000 RMB. The days of you earning 38,000, 40,000 RMB, it's not going to happen. There are those schools offering sort of much lower. Unfortunately, there are people who accept those sort of, same with Korea, same with many other countries. You'll get some teachers who will offer the lower paying jobs. In Korea, for example, salaries haven't gone up since, well, in the last nearly 10 years. But it's still competitive if you consider being back home. A $2,000 salary back home at the moment is around 38,000 Rand, 39,000 Rand. Which seems like a huge amount, but your accommodation back home is substantially higher. Your taxes are higher. Your living expenses are considerably higher. So there's a lot to take into consideration. So salary is more or less the same. So you're able to save, the salaries are there, the living expenses aren't too much. If you had to give someone a piece of advice, what would you say? And we'll start off with Charmaine this time. What would you say for someone coming to your country now as a new teacher or switching over to your country? What is the biggest piece of advice you'd give them? What should you, what must you avoid, and what must you look out for? What should you look for? What advice could you give them?
Charmaine, Matthew, before I do that, can I just answer who's asked a question about accommodation in Vietnam? I just want to answer that question. Yeah. Not everybody gives accommodation. Some of the smaller towns they do, and some of the big international schools will offer accommodation. They will pay accommodation, but majority of the places don't always offer accommodation. So I hope that answers the question for Anonymous in the comment section. Best advice goes back to do research, join the Facebook groups that are here in Vietnam for us expats, and don't be shy to ask the questions that you need to ask. Make sure that you're well informed before coming here. Don't just get on the plane like I did and rock up here and hope for the best. I was very lucky. I've had a few ups and downs along the way, but in the last 4 years, it's been very stable. So make sure that you build a good relationship, understand the culture in Vietnam, because a lot of the times Vietnamese see everything as black and white and there is no gray. And it gets lost in translation because they are a very abrupt, very direct, shall I say, in what they're thinking, and they express it with that, but with no emotion. There's no understanding. Whereas we like to know the whys and the ins and outs. They're not interested in that. It's just do your job and that's it. So understand where their culture is coming from, that you can understand how to actually communicate and not be so frustrated. Get involved with your embassy here in Vietnam. Like, make sure that you're nice to them, because at the end of the day, they can move heaven and earth for you, but if you're full of nonsense, they're not going to be interested in helping you. They will just stick to the rules of what they're supposed to do. Staying away from any of the, if you want to save money, stay out of Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, because you will spend a lot of money. Look for the smaller ones. Make sure you know.
It's a nice city, though.
The north is very humid, whereas the south is very dry. Get to know, build a community within the community that you're in, and make sure you meet up with the locals, because they're the ones that will really, really give you the ins and outs of where to buy this and where to get that, that you're not paying Western prices when they see you. And learn the language. Even if you understand a little bit, learn a bit of the language. You gain a lot of respect from the Vietnamese people with that.
I think that goes for any culture, learning about. I remember my wife's Afrikaans, being able to at least say hello in Afrikaans made a big difference to her dad. Matt, what would you say the biggest, if you could give someone advice, someone coming to Taiwan, what's the one thing that they should know?
Just be humble when you come here. You're a guest in their country. Don't come in here. You're not in South Africa. Don't expect to be treated. I'm not saying you'll be treated poorly, but it is a different culture. Expect very tough months, not days. It's tough moving to another country. Remember also, I'm sure the majority of people moving is for a reason. And the reason, I'm sure, is not because they've got lots and lots of money. I'm sure a big reason that lots of people move to Asia is because they would like more financial stability. But just understand that in order to achieve that, it's not going to be something that happens in the first year, maybe even two. Yeah. Be prepared to put your head down and work hard. Sometimes your school might ask you to do things that you don't necessarily want to do. I wouldn't say not agree with, but sometimes if they ask you to work a Saturday or put in some extra hours, you might don't always push back. Sometimes you just have to accept it,
I think, sorry, if I can quickly, Matt, I think that's a very important part there, because from a South African culture, from a Western culture, that working outside of your normal working hours, what I do in my time is me. It's got nothing to do with the employer. Yes. Whereas in Asia, it's very often expected that you will help. It's for the greater good. So if they need you to work on a weekend or to do this or to do that, it is part of their culture. It's not too long ago when a lot of Asian countries still went to school on Saturdays.
Yes, I mean,
it's odd for us, but it's common there.
Yeah, and so that's the main thing. Be prepared. It's different, and don't compare it to South Africa. You're not in South Africa anymore. When you come over, understand you're in a different country, and there are ways, and like you mentioned, ways that you do things. And that's the biggest thing. Be prepared for, especially coming to Asia. It's a big shift.
It's a big shift. Scott, what's the one thing you think teachers coming to Korea should know and should look out for or be aware of?
Definitely similar to what the others have said. I would say just do it, but do it slowly. It is a process that is bureaucratic, and small things can become a big fly in the ointment. So make sure all your ducks are in a row, document-wise, and all the requirements are there long before. This takes months and months of planning. Because the requirements for Korea, the standards are quite high, and don't sweat it. And on that, bring roll-on. a lot because it's hot and it is expensive. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
you have it, but it is expensive. Yes.
yeah, then the other thing, resilience and adaptability are key. You have to stick it out. It's like they say, it's not going to be easy right off the plane. You're going into a whole different paradigm, a different hemisphere, a different mindset of a different culture. Everything's going to be different. So take it as it comes, be resilient, stick it out. A lot of people think they can't handle it after the first 2 weeks and want to go, and you
Yeah.
just got to stick it out. It will get easier as you get more and more used to it. And then also in that, get out of your comfort zone. You can't fly across the world to a different culture to expect your safe bubble. Go
Yeah.
out, try the food, try the things. As long as you're nice about it, they will be nice to you. And then learning a little bit of the language does go a long way. So getting out of your comfort zone does make you feel more at home in this new place. And that's what you're doing it for. Uh, you know, and yeah, trust me on the roll on.
I haven't heard that in quite some time. Lisa, what would you, if you had to give someone some advice, or new teacher advice that's coming over there, what's the one thing that you say that they need to look out for, be aware of? What would you say to them?
Okay, first I would say that I think it's I forgot the name. The previous person that just spoke now in
Me?
South Korea.
Yeah.
Scott.
Scott,
Scott?
yes. Yes. What you said, I think it's important that when one moves abroad, they also think why they are moving there. Of course, it's a different culture. Change is uncomfortable. It's never easy. Of course, when you change, you want something that is like better than where you come from. You are not going to be treated, of course, like a princess. Things are going to be hard where you are moving. And one thing that I also realized with the culture here, like when I did my interview, I was interviewed by a foreign teacher who was like a head of foreign teachers then in our different branch. And then when I was thinking that I wanted to be just a teacher, but how are you the head of foreign teachers, like already interviewing me? Like I didn't know that it's possible because I wasn't like looking just to elevate in career or elevate at work. And then she told me that when you get there, be different. Don't be just like everyone else. When you are expected to maybe come to work on time and work normal, do different things that are going to make them see you different, because they like a person that is proactive, somebody that is coming with different ideas that are benefiting their business or their things. So I started also bringing new ideas. I brought things that they didn't have to the school, and then I came with changes and stuff like that. And that's how within 6 months of being there, I was getting salary increases without applying. Before I finished the year, I was appointed as the head of foreign teachers in my campus. And it's been good working there because now I train others that are coming after me, and I tell them, you should do this. You should also be different. This and that is going to like lead you to, I mean, like if you also, because some people have the problem with maybe following rules or asking or following instructions when you find things in place in the workplace. And that maybe makes the work environment maybe uncomfortable, or thinking that I like doing things this way. But when you get to a work environment, you should follow what is done, or you should come up with a maybe better plan, better ideas, something that is benefiting in order to be different. Don't just be normal, just be a different teacher.
Thank you. Yeah, so just a reminder to everyone, if you can take part in that poll that's going, please, I'd appreciate that. It helps us for future webinars. From my side, if I were to give people advice going over, having gone to different countries, gone and lived and worked in the UK, in China, and in South Korea, it's a lot easier going to an English-speaking country. If you're going to go to an Asian country with it is scary. It's very scary. It's going to be very different. The culture is going to be very different. you, depending on where you're coming from, you might end up with something better, but chances are with your very first job, your accommodation or your living conditions might be worse than what you're used to back home. But it's only for the first year. Once you've learned how things work, once you've been able to explore, once you've been able to then upgrade yourself, upgrade your apartment and move to different areas, you're not stuck in that job in that first year. Know why you're going there, as quite a few of the panelists have mentioned. Have an idea of what that journey is for you. Is it just to travel? Or are you there for a medium to longer term? You want to make a difference in your life. You want to save. You want to do something. And then plan what you want to do accordingly. Upgrade yourself. Find better schools or better accommodation. It's everyone or most people on this course didn't start off where they are now. They started off quite a way back in very different circumstances, I'm sure. But that's the benefit of Asia. There's a lot that one can do. There are a lot of different schools. There are a lot of opportunities out there. And it's easier for you when you're already in Asia because you have some exposure to that. You can go and sort of, go on holiday and experience these different places. I see there are some questions. Charmaine, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, in Vietnam, and I'm sure it's the same in Taiwan, South Korea, and China. It's not just to come over here to teach English. We have, if you're looking at the private schools and international schools, there's math, there's science, there's art, there's drama, there's PE coaches. Outside of teaching, we even have golf instructors now living here. We have football coaches living here, getting an astronomical salaries and living the really high life. So it's moving to a different country. Don't just always look at it as an English teacher. I know that we're focusing on that, but there are people out there who want to make the change, but are scared to make the change because they think it's only for English teachers. And it's not. There are other opportunities.
Yeah. Okay, so if we can quickly, before we wrap up, answer some of these questions. The one that's sort of jumping out at me is the question I see, Charmaine, you answer that depends which country you want to go to. How feasible is it to move with children? The one thing I can say is from my conversations over the last year, I've spoken to a lot of people in Asia, in various countries, where they do have little ones like Lisa. Most recently, I was speaking to a girl 3 weeks ago with a 4-month-old. There are a lot of people in Asia who manage to make a very good success of their lives with their children, and with them in Asia. I know there are quite a few where they leave their kids behind to go and try and make a better life, but it's not that difficult. I'm hoping that with Lisa's help, we can do a webinar with some of the other clients that I've spoken to in China, where we can do a webinar specifically on that particular topic, speaking to different moms and dads in Asia where you have your family there. You can go with your family, you can make a success, you can still save, you can still, like Lisa, make your first million and become a South African millionaire. So it is possible. It does depend very much as well which country you're going to. I'm sure living expenses and schooling is very different in different parts. But as Matthew was saying earlier, certain governments give you incentives. I know in Korea, for example, when my daughter was born, they essentially, it's like a credit card, but it's not a credit card, but they give you a card with money on it, which covers a lot of your expenses within that first year of having a child. It certainly is a lot cheaper than my second daughter cost me, which I had in South Africa. The other thing is Korean daycares. I don't know about Chinese or Taiwanese or Vietnamese, but Korean daycares are incredible. They are amazing. Yeah, it's a whole different world. So let's look at some of these questions then. And we'll see Vietnam. So someone asked, does Vietnam not cover accommodation? Charmaine?
Answer that.
Average, answer that. Okay, brilliant. Oh, I see. I'm looking at the answered questions. Okay, so I see there is someone who wanted to have information about life cover, repatriation services, what happens in case of death. The one thing I can say there, because this is not a financial advice webinar, this is just a webinar, in terms of general conversation. If you're welcome to reach out to me. I can give you some advice on that. If you're going to do your homework, there are a lot of companies internationally that can provide life insurance, repatriation services to expats. There are a lot of companies in China that do that as well, in Hong Kong. in Korea as well. Your South Africa-based companies, though, you need to be very, very specific and need to be very, very clear in terms of the contracts and the wording, the policy wording, because though many advertise that they have repatriation services and will cover you abroad, the fine print says it won't. And it all depends on where you are and what sort of expat you are and where you're actually living. Many of them will only cover you up to a certain parallel. So do your homework. You may very well be better off with an international company, where you're based. Then SARS, how do you make sure you're in good standing with SARS? I'm sure you can reach out to SARS and ask them how to do that. So again, if you want advice in terms of tax, you're welcome to reach out to me, and I'll give you that offline, as this is not a financial webinar. Nelly asked, Matt, this is for you. She missed the starting salary in Taiwan for someone without experience. And can anyone apply, or is it strictly teaching qualifications, BEds?
Look, I mean, if you have a teaching qualification, you have many more doors that you could go to international schools and things like that, where your starting salary would be much higher. Look, currently the school I'm at, I mean, your starting salary is probably closer towards about 50,000 Rand a month. Okay. But what we mentioned before, like if you've got a degree and you just want to get your foot in the door, your starting salary is probably going to be about 35,000 Rand a month. That would be your starting salary.
Okay. It's the same with most of your Asian countries. Your international schools, if you have BEd degrees, you can earn substantial salaries. I have a particular client in one of those Asian countries that earns around $7,000 a month teaching science. But she has a degree in science. I can't remember which degree, but she's way smarter than I am when it comes to science. Then someone else asked, okay, so we've done that one.
Can I add to that? Yeah, as
yes,
I work at an
internet. You have a lot of experience when it comes to that.
Working at I work at international schools, and yeah, salaries, perks, holidays, everything is better, but standard requirement is being a licensed teacher. It is better to be a specialist rather than a generalist. Just because the pool of hiring for generalists like homeroom teachers, there's more rather than if you're a specialist Spanish teacher or, like Matthew said, science teacher, then the earning potential is higher. But just at an international school, salary, that's one of the reasons I've stayed in Korea.
Yeah. How should you save in terms of how should you save your money, I will do a webinar next week, so look out on social media, or look on my Facebook page, specifically on what are the alternatives in terms of if you're saving money abroad, what do you do, how does tax, how does inflation, how does currency, how does all of that play a role? Then are you able to move to with your mom to China if your mom is 50 years old? I honestly do not know. And I don't know. I doubt Lisa would even know that. China is very great in terms of visas when you're young and you have an earning potential. They're not particularly great with retirement visas. Your mom's still 50, so depending on what her qualifications are, she might be able to teach. But you might very well, that is a question for a visa consultant, someone who knows what's happening then. Will doing a PGCE, Scott, in South Korea, will that help? This is someone who's been in Vietnam for 6 years and is starting a job in Korea in August, so making the switch that way. Will it help to have a PGCE?
It will help to try and get into international schools because it's a basic requirement. And not only Korea. A PGCE is internationally recognized teaching certification. Okay. The tricky part might be the practicum that you have to do. And the other side is it's always that, oh, you've got your PGCE, great. Go get 2 years of experience somewhere else and then we'll hire you. But some places will look at whatever experience you've got as teaching. And like in Korea, they'll count 2 years of academy experience as 1 year. but they'll count it as teaching experience. So yes, if that is a vocation that you want to pursue, the PGCE, it's you can do them in a year or a year and a half or 2 years online. My advice would be to be careful also about who you do it through. Be very selective. Make sure it is a recognized institution, one of the more prominent ones, and make sure that the country you want to go to recognizes that institution. Like Matthew was saying, UNISA is not recognized in Taiwan. It's not quite that bad in Korea because of the whole SACWA verification process. So you can get your UNISA degree verified as a degree at SACWA, so then it will be accepted in Korea. But there's other places that they might not recognize. So yeah, but do a PGCE.
Yeah. Someone is asking, is the market completely closed off to non-degree holders? So with some like Korea, for example, you must have it. It's
Yes.
you know, a lot of them are. China, I'm not too sure. I know a lot of the recruiters do say you need a degree. I don't know. There was a time back when one could get in with all sorts of other qualifications, but I think the education standard has improved so much that now, and because there are so many people going across, that a lot of your countries can afford to be choosy and they can afford to be picky. And this is where having the rationale behind it many years ago was that at least if you have someone who has a degree, well, then they have a language proficiency at a degree level, and most university degrees were in English. Even the Afrikaans sort of universities, a lot of your classes would have been in English either way. So that's why, if you're going to be teaching others, you should at least be at a degree level to be able to teach others. Yes.
I do know that Laos and Cambodia, the degree is not a big issue at the moment. They do a lot of in-house training. So those who don't have a degree, there is an opportunity to move over abroad and still teach English.
Thailand.
Look mainly at Cambodia and Thailand. Thailand, I believe, are getting a bit more stickier now, though.
They are, yes. Lisa, so here there's a question for you. Please advise regards taking your young one. So we'll try. I think this is going to be a big question going forward. So we'll try and do a webinar on that. But I think Lisa will agree you can go with your children. How are the daycares in China? I imagine being Asian. This is the thing. Asian daycares compared to Western sort of daycares, it's more, I don't know, Lisa, if it's the same in China, but they are on top of things. The amount of attention that they give the children, your baby will be potty trained by 1 year of age. It's not going to be 2 or 3 like it is back home.
Yeah. For me at the moment, I'm not taking my child to the daycare because I have a living nanny that is at home with him. But from the ages of 2, in my kindergarten where I work, he can start going there, and then everything is amazing, way better than in South Africa, how our kindergartens are, and the schools here, everything is just advanced. And what's better is that, or what's good is that most schools, or what I know is that when you work in a school, your child doesn't pay if you want them to come to that school, whether it's a kindergarten, whereas because I'm in an international school, so fees are very high and very expensive. So if I was to take him to another school, maybe I would pay a lot of money, but he will be going to my school. Then I don't have to pay anything. I just have to buy a uniform when he goes to K1, K2, stuff like that. And but I don't pay anything else. Everything is free. Yeah.
Okay, then the last question is, can we have a webinar with expats in the UAE? I focused mainly on Asia for this. I'm sure we can organize one with expats in the UAE. So just keep it up. And then Sadia, so yes, you're 22. I assume that you were younger and you want to take your mom with you. Like I said, that's more of a question. Going to China with your parents or with a mom is more of a question for a visa consultant. A lot of countries will have dependence visas, so spousal visas for couples or dependency visas for when you have a dependent. If your mom is financially dependent on you, I would investigate doing that. So that's what one would need to look at. And then very quickly, what I wanted to do, I just want to share, since I have it here now, I've got to figure out how to share on Zoom. I haven't used Zoom in a long time. I use Teams lately. I just want to share for those of you who did want to know, there is Lisa's Instagram page. You must forgive me. I know a lot about Facebook and everything else and LinkedIn. I don't know a huge amount about Instagram, so I don't know how to share that sort of thing. But there you can see Lisa's, is it your tag at the top? Lisa _ Gogella.
Yes.
You can find her on that, I'm certain.
Thank you for sharing.
Okay. I'd like to
Well,
say thank
post.
you to everyone for taking part. It was a great conversation. I hope we'll do it again. Perhaps not another year from now, maybe a bit sooner. Last year's one was really successful, and this one looks like it too. I've had a lot of requests already for a recording. So thank you, Matt. Thank you from Taiwan. Lisa in China, thank you. Scott, thank you very much for taking part all the way from Korea. You're the latest one already. It's 3, 4, 5, 6. How late is it your time?
It's about 10:20.
10:20 already.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's very late for you. And I see Charmaine's already logged off. So thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Thank you for taking part, and we'll chat again soon.
Oh, thank you.
Matthew.
Cheers, guys.
Bye,
Yeah.
everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.